Vance went on Fox News Hannity and spilled the tea on where it all broke apart.
Mr. Vice President, thank you for being with us.
Good to see you, man.
Appreciate it.
Great to be here.
Let's go back to the Oval Office Friday.
Yep.
From your perspective.
Yeah, great TV, as the president said. Yeah, well, you know, it's funny. So we have a 45-minute press conference, and the president normally does this. I mean, I've seen this now 3 or 4 times with foreign leaders where he likes to bring the media in, likes to have a conversation, but answer questions with the press. As you know, he's very open with reporters. And what I noticed is that for the first 25, 30 or so minutes, he tried to sort of bend over backwards to be gracious and kind to Zelenskyy, even when Zelenskyy was kind of needling him, even when Zelenskyy was saying things that I thought were untrue. The president just tried to be diplomatic, right? I think that's his natural instinct in that situation. And then when it really went off the rails, of course, is when I asked, or you had a Polish journalist who asked a question, the president answered it, and then I answered it, and then something about my answer just really set Zelenskyy off. So then he came at me.
So you're blaming yourself.
then I went back at him, right. And what I tried to do originally was actually try to diffuse the situation a little bit, because I'm like, you know, we're having this meeting. Obviously, there are 100 television cameras here. Let's try to have this conversation in private. And then the president, as we kept on going back and forth, I tried again to say, well, maybe we should have this conversation in private. And the president was like, nope, actually, I don't want to have it in private anymore. I want to have this actual conversation in public for the American people to see. And I do think that there was just a certain sense of, there was a lack of respect. There was a certain sense of entitlement. And most importantly, look, we can look past all of that stuff.
So J.D. Vance is out here calling out Zelenskyy, saying the guy's showing a lack of respect and a fat sense of entitlement, especially when he's rolling up to the U.S. asking for more cash and weapons. And honestly, I'm with Vance on this one, 100%. It's basic manners, man. If you're showing up at someone's house, hat in hand, you don't strut in like you own the place, barking demands. You say please and thank you, maybe even kiss the ring a little, because that's how it works when you're the one needing something.
But the president has set a very clear goal for his administration. He wants the killing to stop. And I think that it's very important that President Zelenskyy and, of course, President Putin, too, they've both got to come to the negotiating table, and that's ultimately where things broke apart. I really don't care what President Zelenskyy says about me or anybody else, but he showed a clear unwillingness to engage in the peace process that President Trump has said is the policy of the American people and of their president. That's the real breakdown, is I think Zelenskyy wasn't yet there, and I think frankly now still isn't there, but I think he'll get there eventually. He has to.
My understanding is he tried to get back in, or tried to stay a number of times, and then made numerous calls to come back. Is that true?
I don't know about numerous calls, but they certainly made at least one request to come back in and continue the conversation. The president was like, look, first of all, they were disrespectful, and second of all, what are we even going to talk about? They've shown a clear unwillingness to discuss the peaceful settlement that President Trump is trying to bring to this situation. I think a lot of Americans are sort of, you know, it's useful to step back and ask ourselves, what is the actual plan here? You can't just fund the war forever. The American people won't stand for it. And by the way, Sean, if you look at European opinion polls, the Europeans aren't going to stand forever for it either. We need to bring this thing to a peaceful settlement. The president was trying to do that. He'll continue to try to do that, but you've got to have two to tango. You've got to have a negotiating partner in the Ukrainians who recognize that, you know, of course they have their views, and of course they're not always going to agree with us, but they've got to participate in the conversation. They weren't willing to do that on Friday, so the president said send him home.
Look, Zelensky's been playing this game for a while now, and yeah, I get it. War's messy, Ukraine's in a brutal spot, and he's got to fight tooth and nail for every dime. But there's a vibe he's giving off lately, like the U.S. owes him endless support, no questions asked. Bro, we're not your personal ATM. Vance is right to call it entitlement. It's like Zelensky's forgotten that America's got its own problems, its own people to look after. You can't just waltz in, guilt-trip everyone with war footage, and expect blank checks without at least a nod of gratitude or some damn humility. Think about it. If I'm crashing at your place because my house burned down, I'm not going to kick my feet up on your couch and demand you cook me steak while I complain about the Wi-Fi. I'd be thanking you every day, making sure I'm not stepping over the line. Zelenskyy needs to take a page from that book, show some respect to the folks keeping his country afloat. Vance nailed it, and I'm here for it. What do you think? Am I off base, or is this just common sense shit?
He said today that the war he expects will go on a very long time. I don't know where he's going to get the money to fund that war. I have my doubts that Europe will fund the war to the level that Biden and Harris were funding it. And then the issue now has come up whether or not this administration will continue to offer money and arms for this war to continue. Because without America, I would argue the president was right in saying they have no cards.
Yeah, well, Sean, I think our European friends, frankly, are being really, they're doing a disservice to the Ukrainians because their own populations are saying, we're not going to fund this war indefinitely. The American people are saying, we don't want to fund the war indefinitely. So the only thing that is in the best interest of America, of Russia, of Ukraine, and of Europe is to bring this thing to a close. What happened, Sean, is you have Zelenskyy. He goes to Europe, and a lot of our European friends puff him up. They say, you know, you're a freedom fighter. You need to keep fighting forever. Well, fighting forever with what? With whose money, with whose ammunition, and with whose lives? The president is actually taking a much more realistic perspective and saying this can't go on forever. We can't fund this thing forever. The Ukrainians can't fight forever. So let's bring this thing to a peaceful settlement.
Now let's break this down. Vance called Zelenskyy disrespectful for not thanking the U.S. enough, and Trump accused him of risking World War III. But Zelenskyy wasn't backing down. He's been pushing for U.S. security guarantees, not just a quick deal with Russia. I see both sides here, but this clash feels like a turning point. Democrats are slamming Trump and Vance, saying they're cozying up to Putin, while Republicans are cheering them as putting America first. I even saw posts on buzzing with split opinions, some calling it a disaster, others praising Vance and Trump's boldness. But I'm skeptical. Could this be more about politics than peace? The fallout's unreal. Protesters targeted Vance in Vermont over the weekend. SNL mocked the whole thing with Mike Myers as Elon Musk crashing the party, and even Stephen King called it a betrayal of U.S. values. Meanwhile, Secretary of State Marco Rubio doubled down, defending Trump and Vance, saying Zelensky's the problem. But here's my take. What if this public explosion was strategic? Some say Trump let Vance stir the pot as a Hollywood trick, like a screenwriter's plot twist to pressure Zelenskyy. I'm not sure I buy it, but it's wild to consider. So, what do you think? Did Trump and Vance go too far, or is Zelenskyy missing the point? Drop your thoughts in the comments, hit that like button if this got you thinking, and subscribe for more deep dives into the world's craziest moments. I'm Jeff, and I'll see you next time on The Alt Perspective. Stay curious.